Let me tell you about one of my favorite meals. Rich, decadent, indulgent, savory. It's this ultimate cottage pie. Not to be confused with a shepherd's pie. This is a cottage pie, and this got 3 types of meat: beef, veal, and pork. Stick around and I'll show you how we make it. First thing we're going to do is make our garlic and chive mashed potatoes. Here I got about 2 pounds of russet potatoes. Now for mashed potatoes, I find the best potatoes is either going to be a russet potato or a Yukon Gold potato. Either way, you can't go wrong. I got a bowl full of cold water to place my potatoes in after we dice them, and I got a separate bowl to skin my potatoes into. And that's simply what we're doing first, is peeling the potatoes. Now if you had, let's say, a potato ricer, you could just boil these whole with the skin on and then just twist and peel the skin off later. Pop the whole thing into the potato ricer and smash it out. I do not have a potato ricer, so this is what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to start by peeling the potatoes until we got a nice smooth skinless potato, and we're going to cut our potatoes into mostly even chunks so that they can cook evenly. And we're adding our chopped potatoes to our bowl full of cold water as we chop them. And once you're done chopping your potatoes, you can see this bowl is full of starchy water. So to remove some of that starch, we're going to go ahead and rinse these potatoes a couple of times until that water is clear. I added my potatoes to a medium saucepan filled with fresh new cold water, and now we're going to add some things. First up, I'm going to add some dehydrated onions for a little bit of flavor, about a tablespoon. Then I'm adding a couple of bay leaves, a generous amount of kosher salt, and some cracked black pepper, about a tablespoon of each. Then I'm adding 2 cloves of garlic. Bring your potatoes to a boil. Cook for about 20 minutes until fork tender. Once your potatoes are fork tender, drain them. Then we're adding them to a large bowl to make mashing them a little bit easier. And the secret to a good mashed, plenty of butter and salt, but mostly butter. Now for this quantity of potatoes, I'm going to add about 1 stick of butter, which is about 8 tablespoons or half of cup. Now you might say that's a lot. You're right. If you say that's too much, you're wrong. Now, because I don't have a potato ricer and you might not either, the next best thing to get smooth potatoes is going to be this hand mixer. So to start, we're going to break up those potatoes, get that butter mixed in, but we're not done yet. We're going to add about a teaspoon of kosher salt and a teaspoon of cracked black pepper. That's just to start. We're going to taste it when we're done. If it needs more seasoning, we're going to add more seasoning. I've also had about a cup of milk heating on the stove. We're only going to add about a half a cup right now. Mix that in. If we need more of the milk, we'll add more of the milk. After a little bit of a mix, I am going to add about another 1/4 cup of our warm milk. Now, mashed potatoes is kind of like the perfect date. Everybody's going to have a preference. Do you like yours thick and stiff, smooth and creamy, loose and runny? But to truly know what's good, you got to get down and taste it. Mine needed just a touch more of seasoning. I'm adding a little bit more kosher salt, a little bit more cracked black pepper, and just a little bit, about 2 tablespoons of our warm milk. Another quick little mix. Then I'm adding in about a handful of chives, and I'm going to gently fold that into our mashed potatoes. And there you go. That's our garlic and chive mashed potatoes. 1 bite and it's incredible. Creamy, salty, buttery, nice garlic and chive flavor is perfect. Next, we're going to prep the vegetables that we need for our filling. First up, a nice large sweet yellow onion, 2 to 3 stalks of some fresh celery, washed and dried, 2 medium carrots, which we are going to peel, wash, and trim. Now, pretty much all of our vegetables are going to get a nice small dice on them. Add them to a bowl. Now, both our celery and our carrots, I'm going to julienne before turning them sideways and then giving them a nice small dice, which you don't have to do. It won't affect the taste at all. It's merely there for aesthetics or for a nice presentation at the end of the dish. And that's it for our fresh prepped vegetables. Now let's talk about our meat. Our shepherd's pie is usually made with minced lamb. Well, not usually, always. And a cottage pie is usually made with beef. I am going to use a mix of beef, pork, and veal, whatever you decide to use. For this recipe, you're going to need 2 pounds of minced or ground meat. We're going to add our meat to a nice hot skillet or Dutch oven or a cast iron skillet. We're going to season our meat with some salt, pepper, paprika, but whatever you cook your meat in. I hope you have enough hindsight, unlike me, to cook your meat in a skillet that's big enough. Anyway, I'm going to push through and continue crumbling and browning this meat. Once our meat is all brown and crumbled, you will notice there is quite a bit of fat. I'm going to drain off all of this meat. I'm going to remove the meat and then drain all the fat. In our same pan over medium heat, I kept a little bit of that fat and I added a little bit more olive oil. I'm going to add in our vegetables, our celery, carrots, and onions, a little bit more seasonings, kosher salt, and black pepper. And we're going to cook down these vegetables for about 5 minutes until they're nice and soft. Now you might have noticed I switched pans. That's because next we are adding our meat back to our cooked vegetables. We're mixing our meat in, then we're crushing in some garlic. Mix in your garlic and let that cook for about a minute until nice and fragrant. Then in goes 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Mix that in. Then sprinkle on 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Mix that in. Then we're adding in 2.5 cups of beef broth and 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Give that a little mixy mix. In goes 2 bay leaves and a teaspoon of fresh thyme chopped and a teaspoon of fresh rosemary rosemary chopped. Stir that in and then let this simmer for about 5 minutes. After that, taste for seasonings and adjust to your liking. Then in goes half a cup of frozen peas and half a cup of frozen corn. Stir this in and then remove that from the heat. Now either add your filling to a baking dish, or if your skillet is oven proof, you can leave it in that. And then you're going to spread out your mashed potatoes over your cottage pie filling until everything is nice and smooth. Next, we're going to cover the top of this with some shredded cheese. Now this is optional, but I personally love the way this comes out with some shredded cheese over the top. The cheese gets all nice and bubbly and golden brown. I'm using a blend of sharp cheddar cheese and Vermont white cheddar cheese. Whatever cheese you decide to use, if any at all, you're going to want about half a cup. After all our cheese is on, we're baking this in a preheated 375-degree oven for about 30 minutes. Until that cheese on top is golden brown and bubbly. We're going to top this with a little bit of fresh chopped chives. And then very important, I want you to let this sit for about 10 minutes before you cut in and serve this. Trust me, your patience will be rewarded. You're going to give that gravy, that filling, time to thicken up. Everything is going to come together just beautifully. And let me tell you, this thing was amazing, just beautifully delicious. This is definitely going to make it into those steady rotation of meals that I make around here. All right, everyone, that's it for me. That's it for this video. That's it for me in this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this video with a friend, and I'll see you in the next video.